Welcome back to the JK Build Series. Today we're talking about springs. All right, we've got the silver JK Rubicon back in the shop to continue on the JK Build Series. If you've been following so far, you've seen us do the long arm install, the 1-ton steering install, the front drive shaft conversion, all that. And now all of that leads up to the next step, springs. We're going to be going from our 3.5 linear springs to our 6.5 multi-rate springs. So let's dive in. So before we start slapping these things in the Jeep here, let's take a quick look at the difference between the two. So if you come on in, take a look at these bad Larrys. We got our 3.5, which is a linear rate, and our 6.5 that's going in is a progressive rate. Now, being as a 3.5 and a 6.5, it's not 100% apples to apples, but it's all fruit. The 3.5, being a linear rate, is going to be a much shorter free length spring, and it's going to have a higher spring rate. So it does have a much higher likelihood of coming loose in its position when we're doing a lot of articulating off-road. The progressive rate, being much longer in its free length, has a far less likelihood of doing that. Now, about midway through the spring swap here on the front end, this would be a good time to stop and show you guys what we're talking about with the linear rate free length spring. As you can see, we're at full droop, and this is determined primarily by our shock length. So when we're talking about this, we're trying to match shock lengths to the springs and make the whole system work together. Now, for the way this is set up now, this linear spring at full droop does have a little bit of movement. And a little bit's not bad. But if this were a 3.5 dual rate, that extra movement, that free play, that open spot would be much smaller, if not non-existent. But even on a dual rate, this can happen. And if we have concerns, we do have, it's not on this one, but they are available on our website. We have a spring retainer that will go down on the spring perch here. You can find those on our website as well. And we have done a previous video on those if you want to check that out in our older stuff. Lower coil retainers. And we're going to get it right under the corner of our coil pad, mark our hole for drilling. Our top plate on, and that is going to have some overlap, create a little bit of tension once we torque the hardware. It's not going anywhere. We got those retainers in place so that it's not going to fall out. So we've got the 6.5-inch springs in here, and we're doing our checks, and as we kind of anticipated, some of our fixed items like the sway bar links, the shocks, the brake hoses, they are a little bit too short for this setup. And it's hard knowing that right away. A lot of those components have operating windows that are good, within a certain lift range. So a lot of times if you're just going up like 1 or 2 inches, a lot of those components might be okay. But we're going 3 inches. That's kind of a jump. So as we anticipated, we do have to swap that stuff out. Now, it's hard to know that sometimes. So if you guys are in the same, boat as we are, trying to go up a little bit taller and you don't know what you're going to need to, make that happen successfully, give us a call. We will help you get through that. We'll make sure you have everything you need to get this done. This thing, it's huge. So we got the 6.5-inch springs on there. Now, as you can expect with increasing your lift height, you're going to have to address certain things like your sway bar links and shocks, checking things like brake hoses and whatnot. But everything that you've seen us do in this build series, as far as like the long arms, the steering, drive shaft conversion, all of that was 100% accepting of this increase in height because it's all adjustable. It's all within an operable window, which is awesome because that means you can start at a smaller lift height and build your way up without having to redo the entire system. Huge, huge plus. Now, this thing's not in its final form. We do expect we're going to be doing maybe some bumpers and tire carrier winch, sliders, maybe some different fenders. We've got some, JT Rubicon takeoffs that we threw on. So we're going to be changing things up again. We'll take some suggestions. Comment down below. Let us know what's hot and trending and what you think would look really cool on here. Now, as luck would have it, we have another JK with most of that stuff already done. Let's take a step back and compare the two. So when we're comparing these two, we're keeping in mind that they have the same stuff underneath, right? We got the same lift springs, same long arms, same steering, same everything under here, but their achievement is slightly different. And some of it might even be a little bit of an optical illusion. We see this one over here has some sliders. Makes it look a little bit lower to the ground versus a bare rocker that looks way higher at the center. But then we look at the fenders. This is a full factory fender. We don't have quite as much gap in here. It's got an all-terrain in here. It's a 37. But then over here, also a 37, but a mud terrain. Looks more aggressive on an open fender. So it makes it look a little bit taller. So we have some of these contrasting, again, I say optical illusions that really kind of mess with your mind and make you wonder, what did I get out of this lift? Especially when you park next to your buddy that says they have the same lift and one is taller than the other. It doesn't make sense. But you start looking at some of this stuff that we're seeing here, it makes perfect sense. The biggest thing that we want to point out to you is more on the factual side. This one has more weight than this one. This has got all the factory plastic. There's hardly any weight to it. This one's got a bunch of aftermarket metal. It's heavier. But that said, when we actually take the measurements, the one with all the stuff on it is only about a ½ inch lower. Now, it's not nothing, and you might notice it, but it's something to keep in mind when you're planning your build. When you figure out what lift height you want to achieve, remember all the stuff you're going to add to it. Whether it's just bumpers and winch, or maybe you're going to put a rooftop tent on there. That's all weight. Weight is going to compress those springs. That is going to reduce your ride height. All things to keep in mind when planning your build. One of the biggest takeaways we want you guys to have from this is that even though we had to replace a couple of minor things by making that lift change, all of our major investment maintained. We were able to keep all that stuff, just make our adjustments and let everything grow together. We didn't have to scrap anything. So if this video was helpful, you enjoyed it, make sure you like, comment, share. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel.